Welcome to our weekly workout. This is our 15th weekly workout, so that's pretty awesome. The fact that we've made it this long. It should cue a Shania Twain song right now. But anyways, this is probably the hardest particular topic in the hero's journey that I've tackled yet. I actually had to pull in Seth to help me get smarter on it. We're going to be talking about the cave scene in the hero's journey. Basically, the cave scene in business is where people actually, sign the check. They're actually parting with their money. Or in the case where you're like if you're a presenter or something, it's getting the signed contract that yes, we are doing business together, and now it's taking the plunge, so to speak. So past the initial meetings and initial responses. So this is just to revisit the hero's journey. We do this every week because it's important, and I need to remind myself as well why it's important. Is your customer or prospect is the hero of the story, not you. You would usually play more of a mentor or an ally role in the hero's journey. You call them to adventure, say, hey, check out my product or service. Most of them will be reluctant because that is human nature. And so you try different angles. And when you really frame yourself as the mentor in this case, as the help or as a helper, and then frame your product or service as the elixir, as this tool that's going to help them on their hero's journey. That framework is psychologically, it's way more effective. The hero's journey has been around for so long because it's on an evolutionary basis. It's actually hardwired into us. The concept of stories and struggles and going from the old world into the new world. It's very, very deep. I mean, I think Joseph Campbell studied Jung a lot, Carl Jung, and fascinating stuff. Most of it way over my head, but when people talk about marketing psychology, that's one of these. That's one of the topics. So that you dig into is how irrational humans are, and how novelty is important, but familiarity is also important. So in this particular stage, in the cave scene, different mythologists look at it differently. A lot of them break it up by approaching the cave. So you're approaching the cave, approaching the innermost cave. And some people look at it as just a single entity, that the hero is going to the cave. So there's a few things about cave scenes. So number one, in the cave scene, the hero is alone. They're by themselves. So this is usually the part in the movie when someone's alienated all their friends and their family and their lover, and they're by themselves. So all of their help, all of their allies and mentors have been stripped away, and they have to tackle it by themselves. Another aspect of it is they have to face their greatest fear. So it's a really dark moment for them because we talked last week about fears and apprehensions and anxiety based around trying to convince someone to cough up 20 minutes for a phone call, or cough up $20,000 for a service, or cough up, $20 for a widget. But ultimately, there's something about their greatest fear. Like this in the clip from Casablanca, it was where he let the love go. He had to let it go. And now that was the greatest fear, and that left him alone, actually. So a very classic cave scene from The Hobbit is when Bilbo gets all of his friends are stripped away. And it was very very direct correlation to the heroes. All of his friends get stripped away. He is by himself. And two things happen there. And this is important. He's by himself. He's facing the fear of being by himself. He doesn't have his protector, Gandalf. The mentor is not there anymore. His allies, his friends, all of the entire team is gone. And he faces Gollum for the first time. One of the things that he finds there is in the cave is where he also finds the elixir. So you'll see that a lot in stories, not just fantasy movies, but like we were talking about, what was the film? The Matrix. You know, oftentimes you're given the tool that you're needed. So where the Holy Grail will be in the cave. So you'll have to face your biggest fear. So the hero needs to face their biggest fear to get the elixir. So in business, they're gonna, and most of the time, them acting on and overcoming that fear is in the form of money. They need to pay. They actually need to spend. They actually need to make, like, put their money where their mouth is. Yes, I want this. Yes, I'm going to pay. Yes, I'm going to sign. And that's some form of an act of commitment. And in return, they do that and they get the elixir. They get the sword. They get the ring. They get the lightsaber. And in a lot of films, it's like It's a Wonderful Life. You know, it's a little less direct there, but he gets hope. So it doesn't necessarily have to be something tangible. Sometimes it could be an intangible. In romantic movies, that is where the man or woman finally beds the lady, finally has the locked into an embrace. So he faces the fear, or she faces the fear, and finds love. That's the potion, the love potion in this case. So another great one actually is in Harry Potter. I can't remember which film this was, but when they had to go into that maze, and they were faced with multiple fears, you know, and the maze itself actually brought out their greatest fear and kind of messed them all up a bit. Odd that it was a kid's movie. So in business, and what we're going to do for the writing workout today is I want to look specifically at the point when people are spending the money, when they actually open their wallet. And as I said, to keep in mind here that this is not something that you could do for them. And this is where, when I talk a lot about people tripping at the finish line, this is one of the areas where people trip. Is that in that final stage, they'll nurture their client. They'll be sensitive to the fears. You know, you create the contrast, create sense of feeling, all the different things that we talk about in our writing workouts, and you know, bring firm but complimentary. I mean, you're doing the dance perfectly, and then when it comes to saying, okay, here's a payment link, or here's a DocuSign link to sign this contract. Here's the actual commitment. This is where you actually take the plunge. And oftentimes people will be, because you yourself are nervous, that kind of will infect the interaction. So there's some examples here. And there's that balance there. And honestly, so much of this comes down to who your prospect is. And by this stage of the game, this is where pre-canned stuff is not very effective. And more often than not, you'll either have information about this person, you know, like an e-commerce transaction, or you'll have talked to them before, so you'll understand what that great fear is. But they need to do it alone. So giving them the space to do it alone and letting them own that decision is really, really important. But one of the things that's not effective is, hey, just take all the time you need. We're not in a rush, blah, blah, blah. No, because as the mentor, it is your job to spur them into action, because they're in this old world. And if you make it to this point, they know by this point that they they want / need this elixir that you have access to, this product or service that's going to make them feel better or make them money or whatever. So they're already sold on it, but at this particular stage, we still need to build not, hey, this quote's going to expire in 3 days. I've done that before for clients and for myself, and it is not effective at all. And the reason it's not effective is because you've been guiding them down this whole path, down the sales process. And you've been guiding them and nudging them and encouraging them, and in some cases, raising the stakes. So that they still need to maintain that momentum. But this is where you give them a little breathing room. Like, this is the point when you kick off the training wheels, knowing that they might tip over, knowing that they may mess it up a little bit. But so giving them space, but not too much space. So I like a phrasing that David uses a lot in emails, and I use it too. I'll circle back in a week if I haven't heard from you. Is one area, addressing the fact that it is scary is okay. Yeah, I know you've never spent this much money on marketing before. I know this is scary. I've done it myself, reminding them that yes, it is scary. Yes, it is a big leap. And, but then having the trust in the rest of the sales process that you can actually step away and let them step into the cave by themselves. And it's an odd balance, but you need to live with the parting words. Now, in business, we are talking about the real world here. Sometimes your prospect will trip at the finish line, regardless of what you do. Something wrong will happen. And you see this in stories a lot too, where they'll have to circle back and tackle the cave again. They try to tackle it too early in life. They haven't picked up enough skills. They haven't gathered enough bravery, or they haven't been able to figure it out yet. And that's one of the reasons that they have like the training montage in movies, like Karate Kid. They have a training montage. It gets his ass kicked because he says, I'm going to face these bullies. It gets his ass kicked. And then training montage, now he's able to face the bully alone. Face his biggest fear, Johnny.